Oh, 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 no.
I don't need negative energy, wrap me in positive synergy. I have been doubted through life, been there and done it with trifling people who told me my style would not work. I told them they wrong, been struggling too long. This song is for you, I'm proving you wrong.
Get out my way, get out my way, get out my way, get out my way.
I'm a genuine person. Like if I love you, I love you. If I don't mess with you, I don't mess with you. It's as simple as that.
It might seem crazy what I'm about to say. Sunshine, she's here, you can take a break. I'm a hot air balloon that could go to space. With the air, like I don't care, baby, by the way. Because I'm happy. Clap along if you feel like a room without a roof. Because I'm happy. Clap along if you feel like happiness is the truth. Because I'm happy. Clap along if you know what happiness is to you. Because I'm happy. Clap along if you feel like that's what you want to do. Here come bad news, talking this and that. Well, give me all you got, don't hold it back. Well, I should probably warn you, I'll be just fine. No offense to you, don't waste your time. Here's why, because I'm happy. Come along if you feel like a room without a roof. Because I'm happy. Come along if you feel like happiness is the truth. Because I'm happy. Come along if you know what happiness is to you. Because I'm happy. Come along if you feel like that's what you want to do. Hey, can't get down, can't know you, bring me down. The love is too high, bring me down. Can't know you, bring me down. Bring me down, can't know you, bring me down. The love is too high, bring me down. Can't know you, bring me down. I said, cause I'm come along if you feel like a room without a roof. Clap along if you feel like happiness is the truth. Clap along if you know what happiness is to you. Clap along if you feel like that's what you want to do. Come on if you feel like a room without a roof. Clap along if you feel like happiness is the truth. Clap along if you know what happiness is to you. Clap along if you feel like that's what you want to do. Bring me down, can't nothing bring me down. The love is too high, bring me down. Can't nothing bring me down.
Alexa, stop. What's going on? What's going on? What's going on, everybody? What's going on? Welcome to Atmos Love Zone Live. Y'all, we got some stuff to go over today. It looks like there has been a motion just released, and we about to read it. Let me say welcome to everybody that is in the chat. Let me see who's up in here. Let me see who we got up in here. We got Kaylee 2. Kaylee 2 was first today. How you doing, Kaylee 2? How you doing? Kaylee 2 said good morning. She must be in a different area. Good. Okay, she said good morning or afternoon to you all. Okay, I got you. Great. BBP, you made it. Yes. Nikki, what's up? Thomas Reese, what up, bro? Daniel Steele from the UK. What's going on, my brother? How you doing? Unapologetically Hebrew. I love that name. Thanks for the pancakes. I appreciate that. Plain as Jane, people representing. What's going on, Freebird? Yeah, we're going inside the courtroom. That's right. Nicole XO. Miss me, Miss Mo. Say Atmos has been getting this transcript work all day. Let's get it. Riri. What up, Riri? How you doing? Just videos in the building. What's up? She said about to get on the road, but I'll be listening. Thank you. Lasting impressions. Greetings, good people. We in here. Indeed. Thank you all for being in here. Let me see who else. Blessed Child in the building. How you doing, Queen? The Unspoken Truth by the Unknown. I love that screen name. How you doing? Welcome in. Alice McDonald's in the building. Adriana Andrews is in the building. Let me see who else. And she got the pancakes. Now y'all got me yesterday with them I can't eat pancakes 2 days in a row now. Okay, but I went and got some yesterday from IHOP. Yes, I did. Karen J is in the building. How you doing? Hey, Atmos, they want to change how the jurors look at the bribery charge. Oh, okay, we about to read it then. Let's get it. All right, y'all, let's read this. Robert Keller is in the building. For those of y'all that don't know Robert Keller is the man behind the scenes. He is the one who, when we put all these donations together to go towards these transcripts, I send the money over to him, and he got to connect to get the transcripts, and he get them down to me. So y'all say, put a shout out to Robert Keller. You know what I'm saying? That's my bro. He the one putting all the behind the scenes work in. Okay. All right. And what's up, Lily? Lily. Okay. Hey, Lily. You ain't Lily from the trial, right? Okay. That's all right. Okay. How you doing, Lily? What's going on? I don't think you that one, but that's all right. Okay, y'all. let's get this going. Let's get this going. All right, y'all. So we got a new motion that came out today. We about to read. Okay. This came out today is the 18th, and this came out today. So this is from the defense, y'all. It says, Dear Judge Donnelly. Dear Judge Donnelly, the defense submits this letter in motion seeking an amendment of proposed jury instructions. The defense recognizes that the court directed the parties to submit joint proposed instructions. However, after a review of the testimony elicited at trial, the defense submits that the proposed amendments are required. Request number 16, Racketeering Act 1. With respect to the Illinois statute for bribery, the proposed instruction currently reads, the Illinois Criminal Code, section 533-1A provides in pertinent part that a person commits bribery when, with intent to influence the performance of any act related to the employment and function of any public officer or public employee. He promises or tenders to that person any property which is not authorized by law to accept. The government must prove beyond a reasonable doubt each of the following elements. Number one, that the person the defendant sought to influence was a public officer or public employee. I believe they already proved that. The person worked down there that gave that they tried to bribe, that Demetrius bribed, right? That's proven. Number two, that the defendant caused another person to promise or tender property to the person that the defendant sought to influence. That the defendant caused another person to promise or tender property. So that person tendered an ID to someone, and the defendant sought to influence. Okay, so they paid somebody to create a fake ID, and that fake ID was then given to Demetrius or whoever he passed it off to. And number three, the defendant did so with the intent to influence the performance of any act related to that person's employment or function as a public officer or public employee. The plaintiff Jane in the building. How you doing, Queen? Thanks for coming in. Thank you. Lami Do, what's up? How you doing? So, y'all, this third one is kind of tricky now, because they say that the government must prove beyond a reasonable doubt each of the following elements. This third one, let me read it again. I want to make sure I'm understanding what I'm reading. It says that the defendant did so with the intent to influence the performance of any act related to that person's employment or function as a public officer or public employee. So this part right here that says that the defendant did so with the intent to influence the performance. Well, when he paid her the money, that was with intent to influence her to do a performance that was against her public job, that was against what she was supposed to do. That's what I'm getting from that. Y'all correct me if y'all, you know what I'm saying, think I'm way off. But I'm thinking that they proved all three of these. That's when I'm reading it and I just broke it down. That's what I'm understanding. The third one is kind of sketchy, but I'm thinking that they tone the line as far as proving that one. Then it says, however, the pattern jury instructions given by the Illinois court provides pattern number, jury instruction criminal 21.11, Illinois pattern jury instructions criminal database updated in April of 2021, Illinois Supreme Court Committee on Pattern Jury Instructions in Criminal Cases, 21 bribery. So 21.11 definition of bribery official. A person commits the offense of bribery when he, number one, promises or tenders any property, personal advantage to a public officer, public employee, juror, or witness with the intent to influence the performance of any act related to the officer and employee's juror's employment or function. They proved that already. Okay? Let me see. I'm going to read some of y'all comments. Plaintiff Jane said, you would think the way Demetrius Smith went ahead and bribed the clerk on behalf and for the benefit of RKelly would fit into. That's what I'm thinking, Plaintiff Jane, that was the one that fits in the category 3. Robert Keller said denied. Asia Kyle said, dang, I'm late. That's okay. You in here. You ain't late. You good. Let me see. Karen J said the RSK lawyers trying to help RSK with that bribery on the jury guidance. Riri said the defense always tries this last minute tactics as well as call for a mistrial generally before they start their defense. Okay, so y'all, I think we're on the same page. Let's continue reading. Number 2, promises or tenders any property, personal advantage to one whom he believes to be a public officer, public employee, juror, witness with the intent to influence the performance of any act related to the employment or function of a public officer. They proved that already. Let's look at number 3. Promises or tenders any property, personal advantage to another person with the intent to cause the other person to influence the performance of an act related to the employment or function of public officer, public employee, juror, or witness. Okay. Let's look at number 4. Receives, retains, agrees to accept any property, personal advantage, knowing that the property or personal advantage was tendered or promised with the intent to cause him to influence the performance of an act related to the employment or function of a public officer, a public employee, juror, or witness. Or number 5, solicits, receives, retains, agrees to accept any property, personal advantage, pursuant to an understanding that he shall improperly influence, attempt to influence, the performance of any act related to the employment or function of public officer, public employee, juror, or witness. The term public officer means a person who is elected to office pursuant to statute to discharge a public duty for any political subdivision of the state. The second one says the term public officer means a person who is appointed. I see that they blew that up, y'all. The defense blew that up for a reason. Let me see. Let me turn this off. We got to dig into this a little bit. So as y'all see, the defense took that last part there and blew that up again. And they're re-emphasizing. The term public officer means a person who is appointed to an office, which is, okay, hold on. So the term public officer means someone who is elected to public office pursuant to the statute. And then the second one says the term public officer means a person who is appointed to an office which is established and the qualifications and duties of which are prescribed by statute to discharge a public duty or any political subdivision of the state. This other one says the term public employee is a person who is authorized to perform an official function on behalf of and is paid by any political subdivision of the state. The term tender means any delivery or proffer made with the requisite intent. Committee note, instruction and note approved on January 26, 2018. Let me see, as amended by PA, let me see, with paragraph used, given instruction. When paragraph is used, give, okay, when paragraph is used, give, okay. So they're trying to explain how people should break that down. So now let's see how they are trying to break this down. It says, therefore, according to the Illinois pattern, jury instructions, the person charged pursuant to the statute has to either promise or tender property or promise or tender property to another person with the intent to cause the other person to influence the performance of an official act. So in my recollection of this, and y'all tell me if I'm wrong, it looks like when Demetrius Smith paid the money to the one that he bribed, I believe he bribed two of them. One of them he gave $500 to, another one was $1,500. Y'all correct me if I'm wrong, but I think I'm right. When he gave the money for someone to create an ID for Aaliyah, that right there compromised her position as an employee working in a facility, which influenced the performance of the act, which the marriage was an official act. So because that was a fake ID that was used in order for her to obtain a legal ID or to obtain an ID in order to get married, that money, which was the bribe, influenced the performance of the official act. That's what I see, y'all. That's what I see. This is further illustrated by additional guidance provided by the Illinois pattern jury instructions, for example. So it says here, Illinois Supreme Court Committee on Pattern Jury Instructions in Criminal Acts, 21.12 issues in bribery official. To sustain the charge of bribery, the state must prove the following propositions. The first proposition, that blank was a public officer, public employee, juror, or witness. Second proposition, that the defendant promised or tendered to property a personal advantage. Third proposition, that the defendant did so with the intent to influence the performance of any act related to employment, function as public officer, public employee, juror, or witness. If you find from your consideration of all the evidence that each one of these propositions has been proved beyond a reasonable doubt, you should find the defendant guilty. If you find from your consideration of all of the evidence that any one of these propositions has not been proved beyond a reasonable doubt, you should find the defendant not guilty. This gonna be denied so doggone quick, y'all. When I tell y'all this gonna be the quickest denial I ever seen, I really believe that Judge Don Anley gonna be like, really? Y'all trying it. Y'all really trying it. Let's look at this. Committee note. It says, At the instant trial, the government called Demetrius Smith regarding the bribery charge. On direct, Mr. Smith testified that he alone offered money to another person, that Mr. Kelly was not present when he discussed anything about money, and that he received the money from another person and not Mr. Kelly. On cross-examination, Mr. Smith was asked the question, okay, now, Robert never had anything to do with you bribing anyone to get a marriage license. Am I correct? Demetrius Smith said, no, he didn't. The count related to bribery should be dismissed. If the court, however, decides to submit the charge to the jury, it is clear that the government theory is that the bribery was conducted through an intermediary. Quick question. Does anybody really think that R. Kelly had no idea that they were going to be getting a fake ID for Aaliyah? Does anyone really think, anyone with any type of common sense, think that R. Kelly didn't know that Aaliyah was 15 years old when he thought he got her pregnant and wanted to marry her so that she couldn't get him in trouble? Does anyone in here really think that R. Kelly knew that Aaliyah could not marry him at 15 because she wasn't old enough to, and that some things needed to happen? Does anyone think that R. Kelly didn't know that they was going in there to give money to somebody to bribe to make an ID for? Is it just me, or do they expect all of us to act like we boo-boo the fool? And then R. Kelly, which we read the transcripts, and we know that R. Kelly was there for every single step of obtaining those illegal documents for Aaliyah to be able to get the ID so that she could get that marriage license to marry him. He was there for every single step, y'all. Every single step. He was there. Yes, he's on record. That's right, Nicole XO. He's on record saying, I got this new artist. Her name is Aaliyah. Man, who they think? Do they think we just like straight slow? Is that what they really think? They must think we really slow, y'all. Let me continue reading this. It says here, 21.12b, issues in bribery, official, through an intermediary. It says to sustain the charge of bribery, the state must prove the following propositions. The first proposition, that the defendant promised or tendered property, a personal advantage to, and second proposition, that the defendant did so with the intent to cause or to influence the performance of any act related to the employment function of a public officer, public employee, juror, or witness. Number three, if you find from your consideration of all the evidence that each one of these propositions has been proved beyond a reasonable doubt, you should find the defendant guilty. If you find from your consideration of all the evidence that any one of these propositions has not been proved beyond a reasonable doubt, you should find the defendant not guilty. A committee note, as illustrated by the Illinois pattern jury instruction, there are only two propositions. The proposed instruction would improperly provide three propositions. However, as demonstrated above in any scenario, the defendant would have to tender property directly to the person bribed, 21.12, or tender property to the person, a third person, with the intent to cause the third person to influence the official act. The second part of the proposed instruction in this case currently reads, second, that the defendant caused another person to promise or tender property to the person and defendant sought to influence. However, that is not a proper reading of the statute, nor would it appear to be an instruction that would be given pursuant to the pattern instruction. The defense submits that the jury instructions in the instant case regarding the Illinois statute should be guided by what the Illinois state legislature intended and what is properly given by the Illinois state courts. The defense respectfully requests that the instruction be amended so that it reads that the defendant either promised or tendered property to the official actor or promised or tendered property to a person so that he or she could influence the official actor. Here's another question I have. Does anyone believe, does anyone believe that RKelly really knew absolutely nothing about what Demetrius was doing? I believe, based on what I have seen and based on the way he acted on the stand and how delusional he acted and how, crazy he acted the first day, and then the judge pretty told him, you got to come out here and do this anyway, so I advise you calm down and act like you got some doggone sense, that he finally I think he was trying to protect RKelly. He was trying to protect him. I don't think there's no way in hell that him and RKelly did not have a conversation, which they did, because he said, don't think nobody didn't say, hey, you need to go ahead and marry this girl, or give him information that, hey, you need to go ahead and marry her. So go ahead and play. Let me help y'all out real quick. There had to be some planning that went into making sure that he had this flight booked in the middle of his concert to fly to Chicago and then fly right back to continue his tour. You don't think that there was a conversation that was had right there as to say, hey, we need to fly you here so you can marry Aaliyah? Is he a robot where people just had a remote control and just moved him around wherever they decided for him to go? No, not at all. All right, let me continue this. California Health and Safety Code 120290. Now listen, if I'm wrong, y'all, tell me. Hey, I don't mind saying, hey, y'all, I was wrong. I made a mistake. I will come on it and say that. But I don't think I'm wrong in this. I just don't see how, with as much control. Let me say that one more time for the slow people in the back. With as much control that RKelly had on every single person that was around him, you can't fart without telling me. You can't breathe without telling me. You can't go to the bathroom without telling me. You can't move without telling me. You can't eat without telling me. You can't go to the mall with your sister without telling me. You really think that somebody about to tell him that he about to get married and he don't know nothing about it? Man. I'm just saying. I don't know who Demetrius think he fooling. I agree. Let's keep going, y'all. With respect to California Health and Safety Code 120290, the proposed instruction currently reads, the government must prove beyond reasonable doubt, first, that the defendant knew, thank you very much, Diva Time, thank you for that blessing, I thank you for the super chat, that the defendant knew that he was inflicted with any conscious, infectious, or communicable disease. Oh my gosh, they're trying to go back at this again. Here we go. Herpes. The government must prove beyond a reasonable doubt, number one, that the defendant knew that he was afflicted with any contagious, infectious, or communicable disease. Number two, that the defendant exposed himself to Jane Doe number 5 by engaging in unprotected sexual activity with Jane Doe. So they're trying to say that it's not or can't be proven that he had sex with Azriel. Number 3, that the defendant acted willfully. Really? Are they contemplating if R. Kelly was forced to have sex with Azriel? Willfully, huh? Okay. And number 4, that the defendant did not inform Jane Doe number 5 that he had a contagious, infectious, or communicable disease and obtain her consent to expose herself in these circumstances prior to engaging in the exposure. However, the text of the statute actually provides, here we go. A, number 1, the defendant is guilty of intentional transmission of an infectious or communicable disease if all the following apply. Number 1, the defendant knows that he or she or a third party is afflicted with an infectious or communicable disease. Okay, that's proven. Number 2, the defendant acts with the specific intent to transmit or cause an afflicted third party to transmit that disease to another person. First of all, if you don't use no condom and you know that you got some stuff going on with your body, you got herpes, you got bumps popping up everywhere, you are intentionally putting a person at risk to transmit them with whatever disease you have. You are not protecting that person. Number 3, the defendant or the afflicted third party engages in conduct that exposes a substantial risk of transmission to that person. Okay. Number 4, the defendant or third party transmit the infectious or communicable disease to another person. He did that to a lot of women. Number 5, if exposure occurs through interaction with the defendant and not a third party, the person exposed to the disease during voluntary interaction with the defendant did not know that the defendant was afflicted with the disease. A person's interactions with the defendant is not involuntary solely on the basis of his or her lack of knowledge that the defendant was afflicted with the disease. And number 2, a defendant is guilty of willfully exposure to an infectious or communicable disease if a health officer or health officer's designee acted under circumstances that make securing a quarantine or health officer order infeasible, has instructed that the defendant not to engage in particularized conduct that poses a substantial risk of transmission of an infectious or communicable disease, and that the defendant engages in the conduct within 96 hours of instruction. A health officer or health officer's designee may issue a maximum of 2 instructions to a defendant that may result in violation of this paragraph. A, the defendant does not act with the intent required pursuant to subparagraph B of paragraph 1 of subdivision if the defendant takes or attempts to take practical means to prevent transmission. Well, he did not take or prevent to take. So are they trying to say that because he was taking the Valtrex or the herpes medicine, that he was trying to protect himself and protect other women from getting it? Is that what they're trying to say? Let's see here. C, failure to take practical means to protect transmission alone is insufficient to prove the intent required pursuant to subparagraph B of paragraph of submission A. D, becoming pregnant while infected with the infectious or communicable disease continuing a pregnancy while infected with the infectious or communicable disease, and declining treatment for an infectious or communicable disease during pregnancy does not constitute a crime for purposes of this section. E. The purpose of this section, the following definition shall apply. Number 1, conduct that poses a substantial risk of transmission means an activity that has a reasonable probability of disease transmission as proven by competent medical or epidemiological evidence. Conduct poses a low or negligible risk of transmission as proven by competent medical or epidemiological evidence does not meet the definition of conduct proposing a substantial risk of transmission. Number 2, infectious or communicable disease means a disease that spreads from person to person directly or indirectly that has sufficient public health implications. Number 3, practical means to prevent transmission means a method, device, behavior, or activity demonstrated scientifically to measurably limit or reduce the risk of transmission of an infectious or communicable disease, including but not limited to the use of a condom. That's a wrap because he never used condoms. Barrier protection or prophylactic device, no. Or good faith compliance with the medical treatment regimen or for the infectious or communicable disease prescribed by a health officer or physician. F, this section does not preclude a defendant from asserting any common law defense. The statute also proposes a defendant's medical records, medications, prescriptions, or medical devices shall not be used as the sole basis of establishing the specific intent required pursuant to subparagraph B of paragraph 1 and of subdivision. So what they're trying to do is take out the fact that he's been using herpes medicine. What's going on, pancakes? The truth, what's going on? The truth. I love your content, the truth. I shared it on my page. Okay. Miss Mo said, didn't they already try this communicable disease argument once before? It didn't work then, it won't work now. I agree. Tanya Douglas, what's going on? You got the pancakes in here. Okay. All right, here we go. Initially, the defense respectfully requests that the court require the government to indicate whether the claim is that Mr. Kelly intentionally exposed others or that he willingly exposed others. Further, the defense respectfully requests that the court provide an instruction that the defendant does not act with the intent required pursuant to the statute if the defendant takes or attempts to take practical means to prevent transmission. The defense also respectfully requests that the court provide an instruction that failure to take practical means to prevent transmission alone is insufficient to prove the intent to transmit a communicable disease. What the hell is wrong with them? What? Hold on. What's up, 2T Black Native? Man. Further, the defense respectfully requests that the court provide an instruction that the defendant does not act with the intent required pursuant to the statute if the defendant takes or attempts to take practical means to prevent transmission. The defense also respectfully requests that the court provide an instruction that failure to take practical means to prevent transmission alone. So failure to wear a condom or just not have sex with somebody when you know you have a communicable disease alone is insufficient to prove the intent to transmit a community. This thing gonna be denied before it even get there, y'all. Wow. California Penal Law Sections 2615A and 2615B. The statute provides Statute 2615A, unlawful sexual intercourse is an act of sexual intercourse accomplished with a person who is not the spouse of the perpetrator. If the person is a minor, for the purposes of this section, a minor is a person under the age of 18, and an adult is a person who is at least 18 years of age. B, any person who engages in an act of unlawful sexual intercourse with a minor who is not more than 3 years older or 3 years younger than the perpetrator is guilty of a misdemeanor. The defense respectfully requests that the court provide the following instruction. Mistake of fact. Reasonable mistake by the defendant as to the age of a minor is a defense. Really? They calling it a mistake of fact. Reasonable mistake by the defendant as to the age of the minor is a defense. This defense applies if the defendant held a reasonable belief that the minor was at least 18 years old at the time of the sexual intercourse. Well, this is going to get thrown out because it has been proven that these ladies, some of them told him that they were 17. One showed an ID that showed she was 16. He told her, say you're 19 and act like you're 21. So that right there knocks that out. Authority, People versus Hernandez, 61, Cal 2D, 529, 534, 39. Cal, it says there can be no dispute that a criminal intent exists when the perpetrator proceeds with utter disregard of or in lack of grounds for a belief that the female has reached the age of consent. But if he participates in an actual act of sexual intercourse, believing his partner to be beyond the age of consent, with reasonable grounds for such belief, where is his criminal intent? In such circumstances, he has not consciously taken any risk. Instead, he has subjectively eliminated the risk by satisfying himself on reasonable evidence that the crime cannot be committed. If it occurs that he has been misled, we cannot realistically conclude that for such reason alone, the intent with which he undertook the act suddenly becomes more heinous. The court in Hernandez reversed a conviction for statutory rape within the complaint when the complainant was 17 and 9 months old, and the accused had good faith belief that the complainant was over the age of consent. So let me help y'all out with this real quick. Let's talk about Geronda Pace. So before RKelly had sexual intercourse with her, when she lied and said she was 18, she lied at first, and he had oral sex with her. He ate out her butt and all that kind of stuff. He had not penetrated her yet, okay? Before he penetrated her, she told him, because she felt uncomfortable, she told him and showed him her ID. Hey, hold on. Whoa. You're doing too much. I'm only 16. See? Look. I'm 16. He looked at it. What's that supposed to mean? Shit. Say you 19 and act like you 21. Bend over. That throws this out right here. Done. He didn't give a damn. Let's move on. Verdict sheet. The defense respectfully requests that the court amend the verdict sheets so that the choices read not guilty, not proven, guilty, proven. The rationale for such an amendment is obvious. The defendant is presumed innocent to require the jury to surrender that presumption to first consider guilt in order to go back to a consideration of whether the defendant is not guilty is confusing, may shift the burden of proof, and denies the defendant a true presumption of innocence. Let me make sure I didn't miss nothing right here. Okay, these little footnotes at the bottom. Right here, Judge Sterling Johnson provided a jury instruction on a good faith defense. United States versus Mesha Hernandez was superseded by statute 261(5)D only regarding sex with a minor under the age of 14, and that is not applicable in to the instant case. So this was submitted. Judge Sidney Stein made such an amendment in United States versus Brian Duncan. The trial transcript. Okay, so I mean, I don't see it. I think it was a waste of time. Let me read some of y'all comments in here and see what y'all think about what we just read. Let me go up a little bit. The P-Hive, he doesn't have herpes. Man, please. Riri said, miss me, desperation calls for desperation times. Okay. Robert Keller said, herpes is not curable, and condoms don't stop herpes. Herpes. The doctor prescribed Valtrex and told him to wear condoms. That's right. Not one or the other. Both. He did not wear condoms. He did not comply. And Miss Mo, the doctor told him that you have to verbally tell your partners that you have herpes before you have sexual intercourse, and you must wear condoms. RKelly, dumbass, gonna say, oh, what you mean, doc? Like put a raincoat on it? Like put a condom on? He said, yeah. He was also having outbreaks frequently, according to the doctor. That's true. Should have taken responsible steps to wear boxers with his leather pants next time. Good grief. Yeah. Ain't that crazy? What's up? It's Quasia. How you doing? Welcome in. Let me see. Robert K. Where were you last night? Daniel Steele said, oh, come to F on. I'm barely speechless yet. Here we are. Yeah. Sher Slade says, how is it a mistake when he will show their ID? Yeah, right, sure. Exactly. He had Geronda's ID in his storage. Yep. Kayla says, haven't heard the recordings of one of the Janes saying, haven't they heard the recordings of one of the Janes saying she was afraid to tell him about the herpes test? Clearly, she hadn't been told he might already have it. He supposedly has a tape where he says a girl's age repeatedly, and it was like 13 or 14. It's crazy, man. He didn't want Faith to be 16 when she was. He didn't want Faith to be 16 when she was 19. Didn't he want Faith to be 16? Yeah, he told her, you can say you're 16. He slapped ass when she found out her age. Police officers saw her ID. She knew. Yep. All right, y'all. We about to get to this, y'all. Atmos, the truth and I can't go to Miss Angie channel anymore because we were showing off. Y'all was showing off. That's all right. Taboo, what's going on? All right, y'all. Let's get to these transcripts. Let's get to why everybody is here. Let me go ahead and share this with y'all. We about to get into Mr. Mechanic. Mr. Mechanic. Hold on. Let me share my screen with y'all. All right. 10. Share. All right, here we go, y'all. We're starting at 2340. That's where we left off yesterday. Okay? Let's get it. Let's get it. Let's get it. Let's get it. Hold on. Make sure I'm throwing this together. All right. Here we go. This is Cannick going against Faith Rogers. Okay, Cannick versus Faith Rogers. The mechanic is about to come out. Here we go. Give me some air. Okay. Cannick says, what did you say? Faith said, I gave her the days I would like to come, and she checked with him to make sure it was okay. And then the flight was booked. Cannick said, the flight was booked. And eventually, you got to return from Diana with respect to your interest in going to visit him. Am I correct? Faith said, can you say that again? Cannick said, eventually, you got a response that Mr. Kelly said it was okay and a flight was booked. They said, correct. Cannick said, and then eventually you received a ticket. They said, correct. Cannick said, and the ticket was not in your name. They said, correct. Cannick said, the ticket was in another person's name. Hold on, y'all. This line of freaking questions just kills me. If the ticket wasn't in her damn name, it had to be in somebody else's name. Why would you ask that question? Atmos, just read. Just read. Okay. They said correct. Cannick said another female. They said correct. Cannick said, and after you got that ticket, you made the choice in saying, I ain't going. The judge says, I did not hear what you said. I'm sorry. Did you say I ain't going? Cannick says, yes, I ain't going. The judge says, that is all right. I just could not hear it. Cannick says, okay. Faith said, Cannick said, am I correct, ma'am? Faith said, you're correct. Cannick said, and you made that choice, right? Faith said, correct. Cannick said, so after you got this ticket in someone else's name, you realized, you came to the conclusion that, you know what? That offends my dignity. I'm not going, right? They said, I never said that it offended my dignity. Cannick said, okay, so why you choose not to go? They said, I just felt like for the first time it was improper. Cannick said, okay, let's talk about the second time, okay? After you felt still that was not the proper thing, you eventually continued to communicate with Mr. Kelly. Am I correct? Faith said, correct. Cannick said, and there were text messages. Faith said, correct. Cannick said, telephone calls. Faith said, correct. Cannick said, FaceTimes. Faith said, correct. Cannick said, and you participated on your own will. Am I correct? Faith said, correct. Cannick said, you answered the phone when he called. Faith said, correct. Cannick said, you sent text messages. Faith said, correct. Cannick said, and you got involved into FaceTiming. Faith said, correct. Cannick said, and then eventually you decided, I'm going. I want to take another trip. The judge says, take another trip. Cannick said yes to visit Mr. Kelly. The judge says, had she been yet? Cannick said, well, give it another shot. The judge says, all right. Cannick says, you gave it another shot. Faith said, can you ask me the question all over again? Cannick said, after exchanging communications, continuing to flirt, you decided that you would give it another shot to visit Mr. Kelly. Faith said, correct. Cannick said, now again, you made that decision. Cannick said, correct. Cannick said, and you decided that you would then contact Diana. Am I correct? Faith said, correct. Cannick said, and you asked for another ticket. Am I correct? Faith said, correct. Cannick said, Your Honor, would this be a good time? The judge said, sure. All right, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to break for lunch. We're going to take a slightly longer lunch today. I have another matter to attend to, so we'll be back here about 2:30. Please don't talk about the case and look up anything or anything like that, but enjoy your lunches. The clerk says, all rise. The jury exits the courtroom. The judge says, all right, everybody can sit down. The witness can step out. We will see you later after lunch. And then the judge says, anything from either side before we break? Mr. Shahida says, not from the government. Shola says, no, Your Honor. The judge says, okay. And Mr. Cannick, I'm going to ask my same fruitless question that I ask all the She called her question fruitless when she asked her how much time do they have. He says, do you have any sense of how long you're going to be? I'm just trying to figure out what we can accomplish today. Cannick says, I'm sure that we'll be finished with her before the end of the day. We may finish with her probably around 4 o'clock, maybe. The judge says, okay, all right. All right. So Cannick says, if that long. The judge says, okay, everybody enjoy your lunches. Lunch recess is taken. Okay. All right, let's get back to it. In open court, the jury is not present. The parties are present. The clerk says, all rise. The judge says, everybody can sit down. All right, let's get the witness, please. Discussion is held off the record. The witness enters the courtroom. The clerk says, all rise. The jury enters the courtroom. And the clerk says, you may be seated. The judge says, all right, everybody. Does it feel any warmer in here? The jury says, yes. The judge says, glad to hear it. Wish I could say I had something to do with it. All right, we're ready to resume the cross-examination of the witness. Go ahead, Mr. Cannick. Mr. Cannick says, thank you. The clerk says the witness is reminded she's still under oath. Faith says, okay. All right, here we go. Cannick says, before going out to meet Mr. Kelly, well, let me withdraw that. After your initial meeting with Mr. Kelly at the after party, did you Google him? Faith says yes. Cannick says, and why did you Google him? Faith said to find out who he was because I wasn't a fan. Cannick said, and you did, in fact, read up about who he was. Faith said, can you ask your question again? Cannick said, you read, after you Googled him, you read what was returned. Am I correct? Faith said, I'm sorry. Can you ask the question again? Cannick said, you Googled him. Faith said, yes. Cannick said, you read what you saw on the computer. Am I correct? Faith said, yes. Cannick said, okay. Now, do you recall an instant where in your earlier communications with Mr. Kelly that he responded to you, come on, I am who I am. I see a few people, but I'm not married. Laugh out loud. Faith said, yes. The government said, and your response was, laugh out loud, I understand. Faith said, correct. Cannick said, now, what were you or what did you take that communication to mean? Faith said, I understand that he wasn't married. You know, he dates multiple people. Cannick said, and he told you that in the initial part of the communication between the two of you. Am I correct? Faith said, correct. Cannick said, now, you told us about a situation when you were dating your first boyfriend, that you were assaulted by his other girlfriend. Do you remember telling us about that? Faith said, the mother of his child, not his other girlfriend. But yes, I remember saying that. Cannick said, there's a dissertation. I'm sorry, there's a distinction. Faith said, the mother of your child and a girlfriend. Yes, there's a distinction. Cannick said, okay. Faith said, it's like a wife and a girlfriend, two different things. Cannick said, if I ask a question, please just respond to the question that I ask, okay? Now, you testified as a result of that you developed a problem, epilepsy. Faith said, yes. The government said, and you testified that as a result that you have to be careful when drinking alcohol because alcohol may trigger a seizure. Faith said, correct. The government said, now you testified and told us as well that when you went to Mr. Kelly's after party, you had some alcohol. Faith said, that is incorrect. I never said that. Cannick said, you didn't have any alcohol? They said, I did not have any alcohol. Cannick said, there was an occasion where you did have alcohol with Mr. Kelly. Am I correct? Faith said, yes. Cannick said, and you did, you consumed the alcohol of your choosing. Am I correct? Faith said, can you ask that question again? The judge says, I think he's asking, nobody made you drink alcohol. Is that right? Faith said, correct. The judge says, okay, next question. Cannick said, so that wasn't just one time. It was multiple times that you consumed alcohol of your own choosing. Faith said, correct. Cannick said, now you testified and told us that you were asked by Mr. Kelly to call him daddy. Do you remember telling us that? Faith said, correct. Cannick said, and you did call him daddy. Am I correct? Faith said, yes. Cannick said, and in your conversations with him, you called him daddy. Faith said, yes. Cannick said, and in your text message, you called him daddy. Am I correct? Faith said, yes. Cannick said, now, that was your choosing. Am I correct? Faith said, yes. Cannick said, he asked you to, and you decided, yes, I can call you daddy. Faith said, I respected what he asked to be called. Yes. Cannick said, well, you didn't have to call him daddy, right? Faith said, no. Cannick said, in fact, if I recall your testimony correctly, you said that there was a time that he called you on the phone and you answered the phone, and basically he was not satisfied with you not calling him daddy and he hung up. Do you remember telling us that? They said yes. Cannick said, and then according to you, he called back again, and this time you called him daddy. Am I correct? Faith said, that's correct. Cannick said, now, you had the option to not answer the phone. Am I correct? Faith said, correct. Cannick said, you knew it was him that was calling. Am I correct? Faith said, correct. Cannick said, and you answered the phone and you called him daddy. Faith said, correct. Cannick said, and you sent those text messages. When you sent those text messages, you called him daddy. Faith said, yes, sir. Cannick said, so he asked you to call him daddy, and you started calling him daddy. Faith said, yes, sir. Cannick said, now, let's talk about the first trip to New York. You testified and told us that there came a point in time that he invited you. Well, you asked for a trip to New York. Do you remember telling us about that? Faith said, yes. Cannick said, and you text Diana. Faith said, yes. Cannick said, and you asked for an accommodation to be arranged. Am I correct? Faith said, yes. Cannick said, and you did all that, right? Or correct? Faith said, yes. Cannick said, and after you asked for the communication or the accommodation to be arranged, you got on the plane. Faith said, yes. Cannick said, and you took that plane to New York. Faith said, yes. Cannick said, in fact, wasn't this a connecting flight? Faith said, yes. The judge says, I could not hear you. Faith said, yes. Cannick said, so you had an opportunity in Nashville where you made the connecting flight to change your mind, right? Faith said, yes. Cannick said, but instead, you boarded the next flight from Nashville to Long Island. Is that right? Faith said, yes. Cannick said, and then you came there and you went to a hotel. Faith said, yes. And Cannick said, what time did you get to the hotel? Faith said, I don't remember. Cannick said, was it in the afternoon? Faith said, I don't remember. Cannick said, was it in the morning? Faith said, I don't remember. Cannick said, was it in the evening? The government said, objection. The court said, overruled. Do you remember what time of day? Faith said, I don't remember. Cannick said, now you at some point contacted Diana after you arrived at the hotel. Faith said, yes. Cannick said, and you wanted to know what you should be doing, what's going to happen next. Am I correct? Faith said, yes. Cannick said, and could you please, a little louder? Faith said, yes. Cannick said, and basically, you had that option, right? You didn't have to go out, and you contacted Diana to ask, what are we going to do next, right? Faith said, yes. Cannick said, okay, and then Diana told you nothing was going to happen until 8 o'clock. Do you remember that? Faith said, yes. Cannick said, and then at 8 o'clock, sometime around that, you went to the concert. Faith said, yes. Government said, okay. I'm sorry, not government, Cannick. Cannick said, okay, and you testified and told us that you didn't sit in the first row. You were someplace very close to the front. Faith said, yes. Cannick said, and this was at Westbury Coliseum? Faith said, correct. And Cannick said, and you testified and told the jury that Mr. Kelly actually performed to you. He was making eye contact with you and singing to you. Am I correct? Faith said, correct. Cannick said, and you stared back at him. Am I correct? Faith said, yes. Cannick said, now, was the stage a rotating stage? Faith said, I don't remember. Cannick said, how many acts you saw that night? Faith said, just him. Cannick said, and you were watching Mr. Kelly. Did you notice that the stage would rotate around and come back around? Faith said, I don't remember if the stage was rotating. Cannick said, well, according to you, that show he was singing to you. Faith said, I stated he interacted with me during the show. Yes, I said that. Cannick said, okay, now you testify that after the show, you were asked if you were going to go to an after party. Faith said, incorrect. Cannick said, you were asked if you were going to go to an after party? Faith said, are you referring to the show in New York? Cannick said, well, that's what we're talking about. Faith said, that's incorrect. I wasn't asked if I was going to go anywhere. Diana told me where I was going and where he was going. Cannick said, did you go to the after party? Faith said, no. Cannick said, did you go? No. Now you got an Uber back to the hotel. Faith said, yes. Cannick says, and you were not told about the after party? Faith said, I was told he was going to an after party and I was going back to my hotel. Cannick said, and you were told that, and then you did, right? Faith said, yes. Cannick says, okay, now, then you testified and told the jury at some point in the early morning hours around 6 o'clock, Mr. Kelly came to your room. Faith said, correct. Cannick says, and according to you, there was a sexual encounter that really humiliated you. Faith said, I said it was awkward. Yes. Cannick says, awkward? You didn't want that to happen. You told the jury, right? Faith said, correct. Cannick said, in fact, you felt kind of the way about it that you called your sister, correct? Faith said, incorrect. Cannick said, you called your friend. Faith said, my best friend. Cannick said, yes. And basically you called your best friend because you said that you wanted to find out if you were off. Faith said, incorrect. Cannick said, why'd you call your best friend? Faith said, I said I wanted to see what she said, what she had to say about that situation. Cannick said, okay, and she had something to say about the situation, and you felt as though that whatever Mr. Kelly said to you as he was leaving the room was constructive criticism, according to you. Faith said, incorrect. I stated that's what he told me. I did not say that's what it was. Cannick said, so he told you that it was constructive criticism. Faith said, yes. Cannick said, now after he gave you that constructive criticism and after you went through that degrading experience with him, you flew back to San Antonio. Am I correct? Faith said, correct. Cannick said, and then there came a point in time, according to you, that he contacted you again. Faith said, correct. Cannick said, and after he contacted you again, he exchanged text messages. You and he exchanged text messages. Faith said, we were already exchanging text messages. Cannick said, did you continue to exchange text messages? Faith said, correct. Cannick said, did you continue to talk on the phone? Faith said, correct. Cannick said, did you continue to FaceTime? Faith said, correct. Cannick said, and after this experience that you had in New York, that you felt degraded about, you asked for another trip. Am I correct? Faith said, we talked about another trip and me coming again. Yes. Cannick says, you asked for another trip. Am I correct? Faith said he wanted to see me, and I gave Diana the dates I was available. Cannick said, and you did that. Faith said, yes, correct. Cannick said, even after that experience that you supposedly had in New York, Faith said, correct. Cannick said, you decided, you know what? I want to see him again. Faith said, correct. Cannick said, forget the fact that he constructively criticized me. I want to go back again. Faith said correct. Cannick said, forget the fact that he degraded me. I want to see him again. Faith said correct. Cannick said, and after you made that decision to contact Diana, you got a ticket. Am I correct? Faith said correct. Cannick says, you got yourself prepared. Am I correct? Faith said correct. Cannick said, and you went to the airport. Faith said correct. Cannick said, and you took the flight to where he was. Am I correct? Faith said correct. Cannick said, and then after you got to that place, where was that place anyhow? Faith said, that place, are you referring to? Cannick says, the trip after New York. Faith said, I went back home. Cannick said, come on. Faith said, Cannick said, I know what I'm talking about. You know what I'm talking about. Faith said, he's not being clear. I'm sorry, Your Honor. The judge says, all right, everybody stop. You stop and you stop. The question is, what is the next place you went to see Mr. Kelly? Do I have that right, Mr. Cannick? Cannick says, absolutely, Your Honor. The judge says, all right, so that's the question. What city did you go to next? Faith said, the city I went to next after New York was Chicago. The judge says, all right, next question. Cannick said, so in Chicago, you had another sexual encounter with him. Am I correct? Faith said correct. Hey, y'all, just so y'all know, this is for a lot of people out there. I should have made this disclaimer earlier. A lot of this stuff is triggering to a lot of queens out there that have had experiences. If it's too hard for you, I understand you, but this stuff is very graphic. It's very real. This stuff happened. Okay. So please forgive me if I'm triggering you, but this is we just reading what's on the transcripts. Okay. All right. Cannick says, an unwanted sexual encounter. Faith said correct. The government said, and after you had this unwanted sexual encounter, you went back to San Antonio. Am I correct? Faith said correct. Cannick said, and after you had this unwanted encounter, you went back to San Antonio. Am I correct? Faith said correct. Cannick said, and then you continue to text and exchange text messages with him. Faith said correct. Cannick said, and you continue to have telephone calls with him. Faith said correct. Cannick said, and you continue to FaceTime with him. Faith said correct. Cannick said, and then you asked for another trip. Faith said, we discussed me coming next time. Yes. Cannick said, and you discussed it after that degrading experience. The government says objection. The court said overruled. Cannick said, you discussed it and you decided that you're going to take another trip to see him. Faith said correct. Cannick said, and you went through the same process. You contacted Diana. Faith said correct. Cannick said, and you got out to the airport. Faith said yes. Cannick said, and then you went to meet him again? Faith said yes. Cannick said, when you met him again, where was that city? Faith said, after Chicago, I went to Dallas. Cannick said, okay, and Dallas was a familiar experience, another degrading sexual encounter. Am I correct? Faith said, I never said that. Cannick said, you didn't like what was going on with him sexually. Am I correct? Faith said, I didn't say that about the Dallas trip either. Cannick said, in that Dallas trip that you testified and told us that you consumed a lot of alcohol. Faith said, correct. Cannick said, in fact, you told us that it was Ciroc. Faith said, correct. Cannick said, and this was, now, you had been diagnosed with this condition that would cause you to have a seizure before you went to Dallas. Am I correct? Faith said, correct.
Mm-hmm. Sorry, I couldn't find...
Cannick said, and you knew that the alcohol would cause you to trigger a seizure. Am I correct? Faith said, too much alcohol can cause you to have a seizure. Yes. Cannick said, and you made that decision to consume the alcohol again. Am I correct? Faith said, correct. Cannick said, and after some point, I think you alluded to the fact that because of the alcohol, you had sexual encounters with Mr. Kelly. Am I correct? Faith said, I never said because of the alcohol. That's why I had sex with him. I never said that. Cannick says, okay. Now, you also indicated that you were left in a Sprinter for long periods of time. Faith said, I didn't indicate. I said I was left in the Sprinter for a long period of time. Cannick said, so you indicated that you were left in the Sprinter while they were in a cigar bar. Faith said, incorrect. Hold on real quick, y'all. Israel, what's up? Okay, I'm back, y'all. All right. Government said, Cannick says, so you were left in the Sprinter. Faith said, correct. Cannick said,
I didn't get that. Could you try again?
I don't know why this thing keep triggering. Cannick said, how long were you left in the Sprinter? Faith said, for a number of hours. Cannick said, so when you say a number of hours, more than 2? Faith said, correct. Cannick said, more than 4. Faith said, it might have been about 4 hours. Cannick said, and you didn't like that, correct? I'm sorry. And then Faith said, correct. Cannick said, in fact, you felt a little humiliated. Faith said, I never said I felt humiliated. Cannick said, I'm asking you, did you feel humiliated? Faith said, humiliated? No. Left behind? Yes. Cannick said, and you didn't want to be left behind, right? Faith said, correct. Cannick said, you wanted to be with him, right? Faith said, correct. Cannick said, okay, and so you felt as though he was not sensitive to the fact that you wanted to be with him. Faith said, incorrect. I never said that. Cannick said, I didn't ask you what you said. I'm asking you if that's how you felt. Oh, he would have got cussed the hell out that day, boy. Faith said no. Cannick said, so when you said a short while ago that you felt left behind, it didn't bother you that you were left behind for a few hours, for about 4 hours? Faith said, it bothered me for the amount of time that I was left behind. if he had something to do, that's his job. He's an entertainer. It was just being there. Cannick said, but weren't you upset that you couldn't leave on your own will? Faith said, correct. Cannick said, weren't you upset that you didn't have food to eat? Faith said, I was upset about not being able to use the bathroom. I wasn't hungry on the Sprinter. Cannick says, okay, but you were upset about not being able to use the bathroom. Am I correct? Faith said, correct. Cannick said, and anything else about the trip upset you? Faith said, no. Cannick said, so then eventually you went back to San Antonio. Faith said, yes. Cannick said, okay. And then after being left in the Sprinter, in this occasion for an extensive amount of hours and feeling left behind, you decided to visit him again at another destination. Am I correct? They said correct. Cannick said, and again, on your own will. They said correct. Cannick said, you contacted Diana to make those arrangements for you. They said correct. Cannick said, and what city did you go to next? They said Los Angeles. Cannick
Sorry, I couldn't find they say it Los Angeles in your music.
All right, y'all, hold on. I got to figure out how to take this thing off. Hold on. I got to figure that out later. All right. And what city did you go to next? They said Los Angeles. Cannick says, and it was in Los Angeles that you testified and told the jury that he was stern. They said correct. Cannick said, and you testified and told the jury that he had a gun next to him as he spoke to you. They said, the gun was beside him. Yes. Cannick said, and frightening you, right? Faith said, made me feel uncomfortable. Yes. Cannick said, very uncomfortable and scared. Faith said, yes. Cannick says, and then he had unwanted sex with you. Faith said, oral sex. Cannick says, oral sex, yes. You didn't want that. Faith said, correct. Cannick said, so he had a gun that threatened you, right? Faith said, correct. Cannick said, he performed oral sex on you that you didn't want. Am I correct? Faith said, incorrect. I never said that happened in LA. Cannick says, what? He said, pause. Cannick says, so he made you perform oral sex on him. Faith said, correct. Cannick says, and you definitely didn't want to do that, right? Faith said, correct. Cannick said, and then you left for long periods of time. And then he left you for long periods of time. Faith said, correct. Cannick said, so gun, performed oral sex on him, left you, and then eventually you went back to San Antonio. Faith said, correct. Cannick says, did there come a point in time that you went to visit him again? Faith said, yes. Cannick said, so after all that, after being forced to perform oral sex on him, after being intimidated by him because he had a gun next to him as he spoke to you and leaving you behind, you went to visit him again. Faith said, correct. Cannick said, your choice, right? Faith said, yes. Cannick said, what city did you go to this time? Faith said, New York. Cannick said, so New York. Now, I want to go back on something we started discussing before the lunch recess. Now, when you spoke to the New York police, when you filed a complaint against Mr. Kelly, you told them that Mr. Kelly penetrated your vagina and your anus, right? Faith said, I never said that. Cannick said, may I approach your honor? The judge says, sure. Mr. Cannick says, read the paragraph. Faith said, I read it. Correct, I read it. Cannick says, isn't it a fact that you told the police officers? Faith said, that's on the paper. That what's on the paper is correct, is incorrect. Cannick says, I didn't ask you. The judge says, okay, first of all, let him finish the questions before you start to answer. He is going to ask you the questions and let the witness respond. Cannick said, thank you. The judge says, so what is the question that you want to put to the witness? Cannick says, is it a fact that when you were interviewed by the police officers who took this complaint, you told them that he inserted his penis in your anus and your vagina? Faith said, that is not a fact. Cannick says, so you didn't tell them that? Faith said, no. Cannick said, and if it's here, they made it up. Faith said, well, that's not a fact. The judge says, well, sustained as to whether they made it up. You're saying you didn't tell them that. Is that right? Faith said, yes. Cannick says, and when you're speaking with them, were they taking notes? Faith said, yes. Cannick says, and you were the only one who were giving them details of this account. Were you complaining, of this account that you were complaining that happened? Am I correct? Faith said, correct. Cannick says, now, isn't it a fact that you also told them in that interview that Mr. Kelly told you that if you didn't allow, that he pushed you and said that he would not allow you to eat during the meeting? Faith said, that's incorrect. Cannick said, if it's in here, that's an error. Faith said, absolutely an error. Cannick said, okay, and isn't it a fact that you told the detectives or whomever interviewed you that you were tested and found to be positive for herpes in December of 2017? Faith said, incorrect. I never said that. Let me read that one more time. This is the part that the defense been talking about, saying that she had herpes before she met RKelly. Let's read this again. Cannick said, okay, isn't it a fact that you told the detectives or whomever interviewed you that you were tested and found to be positive for herpes in December 2017? Faith said, Incorrect. I never said that. Cannick says, okay, you never said it. And if it's in here, then it's an error. They said 100% an error. Cannick said, now, may I have a second, Your Honor, please? Cannick took a second. Cannick said, now, after this experience that you had in LA, where you said that Mr. Kelly had a gun near him as he spoke to you and that he violated you sexually and had you wait around, you flew back to San Antonio. They said yes. Cannick said, and did there come a time that you decided to visit him again? They said yes. Cannick said, and where was that? I'm sorry, Cannick said, and where was that? They said, New York. Cannick said, and now the experience that you had in those other visits, none of them were to your liking. Am I correct? They said, correct. Cannick said, and you felt as though he violated you in some fashion on each and every one of those trips. Am I correct? Faith said, correct. And Cannick said, and those violations were sexual violations. Faith said, correct. And Cannick said, and you said that you felt as though that you couldn't go and use the bathroom when you wanted to use a bathroom. Faith said, correct. And Cannick said, and you felt as though that you were not given food. Faith said, I never said that. Cannick said, you were given food? Faith said, I never said that. Cannick said, what do you say? You know what? Withdraw that. Now, after you had that experience in LA, you decided that you were going to contact Diana and arrange another trip. Faith said, correct. Cannick says, and the same process, you contacted her and she sent a trip. She sent a trip, and then you got to the airport, and eventually got to the hotel. Or what hotel was it? Faith said, you're asking me about which trip? The judge says he asked about what hotel you went to. Faith said, yes. Which trip again? Sorry. Cannick said, New York. The judge says, well, you went to New York twice, right? Hold on, y'all. I'm sorry. Okay, y'all, I'm back. Sorry about that. All right. And then she said, which trip again? She said, I'm sorry. Then Cannick said, New York. Yeah, Cannick said New York. And then the judge says, well, you went to New York twice, right? So I think you're talking about the last time. Cannick said, the last trip. The judge says, the last trip? Cannick says, yes. The judge says, was it the Mondrian or something? Faith said, yes, the Mondrian. The judge says, okay, go ahead. Government, and then Cannick says, and you got to that hotel by Uber? Faith said, yes. Cannick says, and again, this was your volition. You decided, you asked for this trip, and you got the trip, and you made the trip. Am I correct? Faith said, yes, sir. Cannick said, and I think you testified, you know what, withdraw that. And at some point you said you met someone by the name of Joy or Joycelyn. Faith said, correct. Cannick said, and what city was it that you met this person? Faith said, Dallas. Cannick said, I'm sorry, I can't hear you. Faith said, Dallas. Cannick said, you testified that you told us that she appeared to be unkept to you. Am I correct? They said, correct. And Cannick says, and you told us that you and her were in the Sprinter 4. Okay, y'all. What page we at? Let me see. We at page 2370. 2370. Somebody could please put it in the chat. 2370. 2370. Okay, y'all. I am going to take the wife to lunch, dinner slash dinner. I will be back here at 7:30 p.m. I'll be back here and we will continue to read on. Okay, so y'all be back here. 2370 is the page we left off on. I'll be back here at 7:30 Eastern Standard Time. So I'm going to go ahead and schedule this live. Thank you, everybody, for coming in here. I will be back a little later. We're going to continue to knock this thing out, okay? All right, thank you, everybody. I love y'all. Talk to y'all later. If you will please, on the way out of here, please hit the like button. I see we got 123 in here. Thank you very much for coming in. If everyone will please hit the like button on the way out, I would appreciate it. Thank you very much. I will see y'all at 7:30, okay? Thank y'all. Peace.
Oh, 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 no. I don't need negative energy. Wrap me in positive synergy. I have been doubted through life. Been never done that with trifling people who told me my style will not work. I told them they wrong. They're struggling too long. This song is for you. I'm proving you wrong. Get out my way. Get out my way. Get out my way. Get out my way.
I'm a genuine person. Like if I love you, I love you. If I don't mess with you, I don't mess with you. It's as simple as that.